Introduction: The Power of Presence. Welcome back. I've got something special lined up for you. What makes one person unforgettable the moment they enter a room, while another fades into silence despite speaking louder? It is not intelligence. It is not position. It is not look. It is presence, the invisible force that turns ordinary words into authority and simple actions into leadership. Leadership is not about titles. It is about action. Presence is not something you are born with. It is something you build. In every era of human history, leaders who shaped minds, moved nations, and inspired generations shared one common quality. When they spoke, people listened. When they stood, people noticed. When they acted, people followed. This quality was not charisma alone, it was presence. Modern leadership often focuses on skills, strategies, and systems. While these matter, they fail without presence. A leader without presence may have knowledge, but no influence, authority, but no respect, and power, but no loyalty. Presence is what turns leadership from a role into a reality. T's book explores presence not as a vague personality trait, but as a disciplined set of mental, emotional, and behavioral practices that anyone can learn. Presence shapes how you speak, how you listen, how you decide, and how you carry yourself under pressure. It is the bridge between who you are and how the world experiences you. A chapter builds one layer of presence, showing how leadership begins internally and radiates outward. By the end, presence will no longer be a mystery. It will be a skill you can practice, strengthen, and live. Chapter 1. The Silent Power of Presence. What makes one person unforgettable the moment they enter a room, while another equally skilled, equally intelligent passes unnoticed? Is it confidence, charisma, or authority? The deeper truth is this: leadership does not begin when you speak. It begins when you arrive. Long before words are formed, your presence has already communicated who you are. Leadership is not about titles. It is about action. But even action without presence becomes empty movement. Presence is the silent language of leadership, and it speaks louder than any speech. Presence is the invisible force that shapes how people experience you. It is not loudness, dominance, or constant activity. It is the calm certainty that does not demand attention, yet naturally receives it. In a world obsessed with speed and noise, presence feels rare, and because it is rare, it is powerful. Many people talk, few are heard. Many lead positions, few lead minds. The difference lies in presence. A leader with presence makes others feel grounded, focused, and confident without saying much at all. Leadership demands clarity and courage. Skills can be taught, systems can be copied, and strategies can be learned. But presence must be lived. Without presence, leadership becomes mechanical. Instructions are given, but inspiration is missing. Authority exists, but respect is weak. A leader without presence often compensates by talking more, explaining more, and controlling more. This only reveals insecurity. Strong leadership, by contrast, is economical. It uses fewer words, calmer tones, and deliberate actions. Presence gives leadership weight. When a present leader speaks, people listen not because they are forced to, but because they sense alignment between words and inner state. Presence always begins internally. You cannot fake it for long because presence is not performance. It is condition. Your inner world leaks into your outer behavior. If your mind is restless, your speech becomes rushed. If your emotions are unstable, your reactions become unpredictable. If your intentions are unclear, your decisions confuse others. Leadership weakens the moment inner chaos takes control. Presence is the ability to remain centered, regardless of external pressure. It is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. It is not the absence of emotion, but regulation of it. A present leader responds instead of reacting. Reaction is impulsive and emotional. Response is deliberate and thoughtful. This difference alone separates ordinary leaders from exceptional ones. When leaders react, they spread anxiety. When they respond, they spread stability. Teams mirror leadership behavior. Calm leaders create calm teams. Anxious leaders create anxious environments. Presence, therefore, is not personal. It is contagious. One grounded individual can stabilize an entire group. Presence creates flow in leadership. Thoughts become clearer, communication becomes sharper, and actions become purposeful. There are no sudden emotional shifts, no confusing signals, no contradictory messages. People know what to expect from a present leader because that leader is consistent. Consistency builds trust, and trust is the currency of leadership. Without trust, even the best ideas fail. With trust, even simple ideas succeed because presence creates clarity. Decision-making improves. A present leader is not rushed by fear or distracted by noise. They see situations as they are, not as emotions distort them. This allows better judgment, especially under pressure. Presence also strengthens listening. Leaders often believe leadership is about speaking, but true leadership begins with listening. When a leader is fully present, people feel heard. And when people feel heard, they commit. Presence connects every leadership quality into a coherent whole. Communication becomes more effective because it is grounded. Vision becomes believable because it is embodied. Authority becomes natural because it is not forced. Even silence gains power. A present leader understands that silence is not emptiness. Space. In that space, people think, reflect, and align. History repeatedly shows that leaders remembered for greatness were not perfect, but they were present. In moments of crisis, they did not collapse inward. In moments of praise, they did not inflate their ego. They remained steady. Presence acts like an anchor in a storm. The storm may be violent, but the anchored ship remains stable. The crew draws confidence from that stability. In contrast, a drifting leader spreads panic even before failure occurs. The absence of presence carries a heavy cost. Where presence is missing, leadership becomes exhausting. Leaders feel the need to constantly assert authority, repeat instructions, and justify decisions. Teams feel insecure and disconnected. Noise replaces clarity. Activity replaces impact. Fear replaces trust. No motivational speech can repair this damage because the problem is not communication, it is condition. Presence is not a personality trait reserved for a few. It is a discipline available to all. It grows through awareness, self-control, and intentional behavior. It develops when you slow your responses, when you listen without preparing your reply, when you stand firm in uncertainty, and when you choose clarity over comfort. The more present you become, the less you need to prove yourself. Your calm will speak. Your consistency will guide. Your presence will lead. Leadership does not start with speaking better or knowing more. It starts with being fully here. When you master presence, you become someone others trust instinctively. You become steady in chaos, clear in confusion, and influential without force. This is the silent power of presence, and it is the foundation upon which all true leadership is built. Chapter 2. Clarity before authority. Why do people resist some leaders yet willingly follow others, even when both hold the same position? The answer is not power, experience, or intelligence. It is clarity. Before authority can be accepted, clarity must be felt. Leadership that lacks clarity creates confusion, and confusion silently destroys trust. Authority may force compliance for a while, but only clarity creates lasting followership. Leadership does not begin with telling others what to do. It begins with knowing exactly where you stand and why. Clarity is the internal order that gives leadership direction. It is the ability to see your purpose, values, and priorities without distortion. A leader without clarity sends mixed signals. One day they emphasize discipline. The next they tolerate chaos. One moment they demand accountability. The next they avoid difficult conversations. This inconsistency does not come from bad intentions. It comes from unclear inner alignment. When leaders are unclear within themselves, their authority feels unstable, and people hesitate to trust it. True authority grows from certainty, not aggression. Certainty is calm, not loud. It does not rush to prove itself. When a leader is clear, Decisions feel firm, even when they are unpopular. People may disagree, but they still respect the direction because it feels grounded. Clarity removes hesitation from leadership. It replaces doubt with direction and replaces confusion with focus. Clarity begins with self-understanding. A leader must know what they stand for before expecting others to stand with them. Values that change under pressure are not values, they are preferences. When leaders are unclear about their values, they negotiate them in moments of fear. This erodes credibility. Teams sense this immediately. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. And once credibility weakens, authority becomes fragile. A clear leader does not need to constantly explain themselves. Their behavior explains them. Their priorities are visible in their actions. Not hust ter. Chapter 3. Attention is influence. Why do some leaders speak and immediately command focus, while others struggle to hold attention even when their message is important? The difference is not volume or authority. It is attention. Attention is the most valuable currency of leadership. Where attention goes, energy follows. Where energy flows, results appear. Leadership is not about forcing people to listen. It is about earning their attention and directing it with purpose. In the modern world, attention is constantly fragmented. Notifications interrupt thought. Multitasking replaces focus, and speed is mistaken for efficiency. In such an environment, a leader who can hold attention becomes powerful. Presence without attention remains invisible. Authority without attention becomes irrelevant. Influence begins the moment people willingly give you their focus. Attention starts with self-mastery. A leader who cannot control their own attention cannot expect others to follow theirs. Scattered leaders create scattered teams. When a leader is constantly distracted, switching tasks, or reacting impulsively, it signals instability. People may obey instructions, but they will not engage deeply. Engagement requires focus, and focus is contagious. A focused leader creates a focused environment. Leaders often believe that attention is captured by speaking more or acting louder. In reality, excessive noise weakens attention. True attention is drawn to calm, clarity, and in a leader who pauses before speaking, who chooses words carefully, and who does not compete for dominance, naturally attracts focus. Silence, when used with confidence, becomes a powerful attention tool. It creates space, and in that space, people lean in. Attention is closely tied to intention. When a leader is clear about what matters, their attention becomes selective. They do not chase every issue. They do not treat every problem as urgent. This selectivity signals maturity. People quickly learn what the leader prioritizes by observing where the leader's attention consistently rests. Attention, more than words, reveals values. When leaders pay attention to people, people feel valued. This simple truth is often overlooked. Listening fully, without interruption or distraction, communicates respect. It tells the other person that they matter in this moment. Over time, this builds loyalty. Influence grows not through persuasion alone, but through recognition. People follow leaders who see them. Attention also shapes culture. What a leader notices becomes important. What a leader ignores becomes invisible. If a leader consistently pays attention to effort, integrity, and learning, those qualities grow. If a leader only notices mistakes or outcomes, fear replaces initiative. Attention acts like sunlight. Whatever it touches grows stronger. A leader's attention during pressure reveals their true influence. In crisis, attention naturally narrows. Leaders who panic scatter their attention, jumping from issue to issue. This amplifies chaos. Present leaders do the opposite. They focus attention on what can be controlled and what must be done first. This clarity stabilizes teams. People feel guided rather than overwhelmed. Attention also influences leaders who pay attention to patterns rather than isolated events make wiser choices. They observe trends, behaviors, and long-term consequences. This depth of attention separates reactive leadership from strategic leadership. Reactivity focuses on symptoms. Attention reveals causes. Influence grows when leaders align attention with communication. When leaders speak about priorities but invest attention elsewhere, trust erodes. People believe behavior more than language. Consistent attention builds credibility. When leaders repeatedly show up for what they claim matters, their influence deepens. Attention requires discipline. Distractions are easy. Focus is hard. Leaders must consciously protect their attention. This means setting boundaries, saying no, and resisting the urge to respond to everything immediately. Urgency is often false. Important work requires uninterrupted focus. Leaders who model this teach others to do the same. There is also a moral dimension to attention. Where leaders place attention determines ethical direction. Ignoring small compromises invites larger ones. Paying attention to values, even when inconvenient, prevents decay. Attention is not neutral, it shapes outcomes. Leaders must choose carefully where they look and what they allow to continue. Attention strengthens presence. When a leader is fully attentive, their presence intensifies. People feel Italiano conversations deepen, misunderstandings decrease, decisions become clearer. Attention anchors leadership in the moment rather than in fear of the future or regret of the past. Influence is often mistaken for persuasion, but persuasion without attention fails. Attention opens the door. Influence walks through it. Leaders who capture attention responsibly guide focus toward shared goals rather than personal validation. This distinction defines ethical leadership. Influence used to serve ego weakens trust. Influence used to serve purpose strengthens commitment. The absence of attention creates disengagement. People feel unseen, unheard, and unimportant. Productivity drops, not because people are incapable, but because their effort feels unnoticed. Leaders who reclaim attention reclaim energy. Simply being present, observant, and responsive can transform a team's dynamic. Attention is also reciprocal. Leaders who demand attention but do not give it lose influence. Respect flows both ways. When leaders listen deeply, others listen in return. This exchange creates a culture of mutual focus rather than constant interruption. Developing attention is a daily practice. It begins with noticing where your focus goes naturally and where it should go intentionally. It requires slowing down, reducing noise, and choosing depth over breadth. Leadership is not about doing everything. It is about attending to what truly matters. When leaders master attention, they master influence. They no longer chase engagement. Engagement comes to them. Their words land because focus has already been established. Their presence carries weight because attention has been earned. Attention is not a soft skill. It is a strategic advantage. In a distracted world, the leader who can focus becomes powerful. Where your attention goes, your leadership grows. This is the quiet truth that separates leaders who are followed from those who are merely heard. Chapter 4. Emotional Control. Emotional Power. Why do some leaders collapse under pressure while others grow calmer and stronger? The difference is not intelligence or experience. It is emotional control. Leadership is tested not when things go right, but when they go wrong. In moments of stress, conflict, and uncertainty, emotions rise quickly. A leader who is ruled by emotion spreads instability, while a leader who regulates emotion creates strength. Emotional control is not emotional absence. It is emotional mastery, and mastery turns emotion into power. Emotions are information. They signal danger, opportunity, and meaning. The problem begins when leaders confuse information with instruction. Feeling angry does not mean you should act angrily. Feeling afraid does not mean you should retreat. Emotional control is the ability to pause between feeling and action. In Tatpos, leadership is born. Without it, reactions dominate and influence weakens. Many leaders believe emotional expression proves authenticity. In reality, unfiltered emotion often damages trust. Teams do not need leaders who vent frustration or panic openly. They need leaders who acknowledge difficulty while remaining steady. Emotional control creates psychological safety. When people see that their leader can handle pressure, they feel safe to focus on their work rather than their survival. Emotional power comes from regulation, not suppression. Suppression pushes emotion underground, where it eventually leaks out through sarcasm, withdrawal, or sudden outbursts. Regulation allows emotion to be felt, understood, and directed. A leader who understands their emotional patterns can choose responses intentionally. This awareness strengthens Presence.com is not weakness. It is authority in its purest form. Emotional control directly impacts decision. Strong emotions narrow perception. Anger creates tunnel vision. Fear exaggerates risk. Excitement ignores consequences. Leaders who act from these states often regret their choices. Emotional regulation restores perspective. It allows leaders to separate facts from feelings and make decisions based on reality rather than impulse. Teams instinctively mirror emotional tone. A stressed leader creates a stressed environment. A reactive leader produces defensive behavior. Conversely, a composed leader stabilizes emotions across the group. This is emotional contagion, and leadership amplifies it. Leaders must therefore manage their emotions not just for themselves, but for everyone they influence. Emotional power also shows in how leaders handle conflict. Conflict is unavoidable. The question is whether it becomes destructive or productive. Leaders who take disagreement personally escalate tension. Leaders who remain emotionally grounded transform conflict into clarity. They listen without becoming defensive and speak without attacking. This maturity builds respect even among those who disagree. Emotional control strengthens credibility. People trust leaders who are predictable under pressure. They know where the leader stands and how they will respond. Emotional unpredictability, even when well-intentioned, creates anxiety. Anxiety reduces performance. Emotional stability, on the other hand, frees people to focus on results. Emotional power is especially visible in moments of failure. When plans collapse or mistakes occur, leaders face a choice: blame or responsibility. Emotionally uncontrolled leaders seek relief by assigning blame. Emotionally powerful leaders absorb the discomfort, take responsibility, and redirect energy toward solutions. This behavior sets a standard. It teaches accountability without fear. Leadership also requires emotional endurance. Pressure does not come once. It comes repeatedly. Leaders who lack emotional control burn out quickly. Their energy drains through constant reaction. Emotional regulation preserves energy. It allows leaders to respond with consistency rather than exhaustion. This endurance is often mistaken for toughness, but it is actually balance. Emotional control does not mean emotional distance. On the contrary, it allows deeper empathy. Leaders who are not overwhelmed by their own emotions can better understand others. They can listen to frustration without absorbing it and support without losing objectivity. This balance strengthens relationships and deepens loyalty. Developing emotional control is an intentional process. It begins with leaders must recognize emotional triggers and patterns. What situations provoke anger? What feedback creates defensiveness? Awareness creates choice. Without awareness, emotions control behavior. With awareness, leaders control response. Breathing, pausing, and reflection are not small techniques. They are leadership tools. A few seconds of pause can prevent hours of damage. Emotional power often appears invisible, but its impact is enormous. It shapes culture, trust, and performance. Emotional control also shapes communication. A calm tone reduces resistance. A steady voice reassures. Clear language replaces emotional exaggeration. When leaders communicate from a regulated state, messages land more effectively. People hear meaning instead of emotion. The absence of emotional control erodes leadership quietly. Teams become cautious. Innovation declines. Honest feedback disappears. People protect themselves rather than contribute fully. Over time, performance suffers not because of lack of skill, but because emotional safety has been lost. Emotional power is the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by feeling. It is strength without hardness, empathy without weakness, and authority without aggression. Leaders who master emotional control do not deny emotion. They transform it into clarity, stability, and influence. Leadership is not about eliminating emotion. It is about elevating it. When emotion is mastered, It fuels courage, compassion, and resilience. When emotion is unmanaged, it fuels chaos. The choice defines leadership. Emotional control is therefore not optional. It is foundational. It is the difference between leaders who react and leaders who respond, between leaders who fracture trust and leaders who strengthen it. When leaders master their inner state, they gain emotional power, and that power becomes the quiet force that holds leadership together under pressure. Chapter 5. The language of the body. Before a leader speaks, the body has already delivered a message. Posture, movement, stillness, and facial expression communicate faster than words ever can. People may forget what a leader says, but they never forget how a leader made them feel in the first moments. This is why leadership is not only verbal, it is physical. The body is the first language of presence, and most leaders speak it unconsciously. Human beings are wired to read both. Long before language, survival depended on interpreting posture, tension, and movement. That instinct has not disappeared. When a leader enters a room, people immediately sense confidence or insecurity, calm or anxiety, openness or defensiveness. This judgment happens silently and instantly. Leadership credibility is therefore established before the first sentence is spoken. A grounded body creates grounded leadership. Leaders who stand upright, balanced, and relaxed signal stability. Those who fidget, rush, or collapse inward signal uncertainty. These signals are not moral judgments. They are nervous system messages. The body reveals the leader's inner state. When the inner state is calm, the body reflects control. When the inner state is chaotic, the body betrays it. Stillness is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. Many leaders believe constant movement shows energy and engagement. In reality, unnecessary movement often reveals nervousness. A leader who can remain still, especially under attention, demonstrates confidence. Stillness draws attention because it contrasts with chaos. When everyone else is restless, the still person becomes the focal point. Posture directly affects perception. An upright posture with relaxed shoulders communicates readiness and authority. A slouched posture communicates withdrawal. Leaning slightly forward while listening shows engagement, while leaning back excessively suggests disinterest or superiority. These cues operate below conscious awareness, yet they strongly shape trust and influence. Eye contact is another critical element. Consistent, calm. Eye contact builds connection. Avoiding eye contact creates distance. Excessive staring creates discomfort. Balanced eye contact signals confidence without aggression. Leaders who look at people while speaking and listening communicate respect. This simple behavior strengthens presence more than elaborate speeches. The way a leader uses space also communicates power. Rushing into personal space creates tension. Remaining too distant creates coldness. Skilled leaders adjust distance intuitively. They respect boundaries while remaining accessible. Spatial awareness allows leaders to feel appropriate in any setting, whether addressing a group or speaking one-on-one. The body also speaks through pace. Leaders who move and gesture too quickly convey urgency, sometimes anxiety. Leaders who move too slowly may appear disengaged. Effective leadership finds a rhythm that matches the situation. In crisis, slower movement reassures. In momentum-building moments, purposeful energy motivates. Presence is adaptability, not rigidity. Facial expression plays a subtle but powerful role. A tense face communicates stress. A relaxed face communicates safety. Leaders who constantly appear irritated or distracted create emotional distance. Leaders who maintain a neutral, attentive expression invite communication. Emotional control, discussed earlier, becomes visible through the face. The body also influences the mind. This relationship works both ways. When leaders adjust posture, breathing, and movement, their inner state follows. Standing firmly, breathing deeply, and slowing movements calm the nervous system. This physical regulation supports emotional control and mental clarity. Leadership is therefore embodied, not abstract. In high-pressure situations, the body often reveals truth. Leaders who cross arms, clench fists, or pace excessively communicate defensiveness or stress. Teams sense this immediately. Conversely, leaders who remain open, grounded, and composed communicate resilience. This physical composure stabilizes others, even when words are minimal. Body language also affects listening. Leaders who multitask while listening signal Leaders who turn fully toward the speaker remain still and maintain soft eye contact signal attention. People respond by opening up. This creates trust without effort. Listening is not only an act of the mind, it is an act of the body. The misuse of body language can undermine leadership unintentionally. Pointing aggressively, invading space, or displaying impatience through gestures creates resistance. Leaders often damage trust, not through words, but through unconscious physical signals. Awareness is the first step to correction. Cultural context matters as well. Body language is not universal in meaning. Effective leaders observe and adapt. They notice how people respond and adjust accordingly. Presence includes sensitivity. Authority that ignores context becomes arrogance. The most powerful physical signal a leader can send is congruence. When body, voice, and words align, leadership feels authentic. When they conflict, people trust the body over the words. A leader who speaks calmly but moves nervously creates confusion. A leader who speaks confidently and stands calmly creates belief. Training the body for leadership does not require theatrics. It requires mindfulness. Leaders must become aware of how they sit, stand, walk, and gesture. Small adjustments produce significant changes. Slowing movements, grounding feet, relaxing shoulders, and breathing deeply are simple practices with profound impact. Over time, embodied presence becomes natural. The body learns calm. The leader no longer needs to consciously control every gesture. Presence settles into posture. Leadership becomes quieter but stronger. People feel it immediately. The absence of physical presence weakens leadership even when ideas are strong. Brilliant strategies fail when delivered through insecure body. Conversely, average ideas often succeed when delivered through confident embodiment. This is not manipulation. It is communication at its most fundamental level. Leadership is lived through the body. Every meeting, conversation, and decision is accompanied by physical signals. Leaders who ignore this dimension leave influence to chance. Leaders who master it gain silent authority. The language of the body cannot be silenced. It speaks continuously. The question is whether it speaks fear or confidence, chows or calm, distance or connection. When leaders align their bodies with their intentions, presence becomes visible. And when presence becomes visible, leadership becomes undeniable. Chapter 6. Voice that carries weight. Before people understand the meaning of a leader's words, they feel the weight of the voice delivering them. Voice is not merely sound. It is emotion, intention, and authority carried through tone. Many leaders focus on what to say, but few consider how their voice shapes influence. A weak voice can drain power from strong ideas, while a steady voice can give strength to simple words. Leadership is heard before it is understood. The human brain responds instinctively to vocal cues. Tone, pace, volume, and pauses communicate confidence or insecurity faster than language. A rushed voice signals anxiety. A shaky voice reveals doubt. An overly loud voice feels aggressive. A calm, controlled voice creates trust. This is why voice is a central pillar of presence. It translates inner state into audible leadership. A voice that carries weight is not loud. It is grounded. Grounded voices come from controlled breathing and relaxed bodies. When leaders speak from shallow breath, their voice tightens and loses authority. When they breathe deeply, the voice steadies naturally. Breath is therefore not a technical detail. It is a leadership tool. Calm breath produces calm speech, and calm speech stabilizes listeners. Pace plays a critical role in vocal presence. Leaders who speak too quickly overwhelm attention. Words blur together and meaning gets lost. Fast speech often signals nervousness, or a desire to convince. Slower speech, on the other hand, signals confidence. It tells listeners that the speaker is comfortable being heard and does not fear silence. Pauses allow ideas to land. They give weight to words. Silence is one of the most powerful vocal tools. Many leaders fear silence, filling every gap with sound. In doing so, they weaken impact. Strategic silence creates emphasis. It signals importance. It invites reflection. When a leader pauses before or after a key statement, people listen more closely. Silence communicates control. Tone shapes emotional response. A flat tone drains energy. An overly emotional tone creates instability. Effective leadership balances warmth and firmness. Warmth builds connection. Firmness builds authority. Together, they create trust. Leaders who master tone can correct without humiliation, inspire without exaggeration, and lead without intimidation. Volume must match intention. Speaking too softly may suggest uncertainty. Speaking too loudly may suggest dominance. A leader's volume should be clear, steady, and appropriate to the space. Variation in volume adds emphasis, but constant extremes tire listeners. Controlled volume shows emotional regulation and situational awareness. Voice also reveals authenticity. When words are spoken with congruence, the voice feels natural. When leaders say things they do not believe or feel pressured to perform, the voice often betrays discomfort. People may not consciously identify it, but they sense it. This is why honesty strengthens vocal presence. Authentic leadership sounds different because it is aligned internally. Listening influences voice as much as speaking. Leaders who truly listen speak differently. Their responses are measured, relevant, and respectful. Leaders who half listen speak over others, interrupt, or respond inaccurately. This weakens authority. A voice that carries weight is informed by attention. Voice becomes especially important during conflict. Raised voices escalate tension. Sharp tones create defensiveness. A steady, calm voice it communicates control and invites rational engagement. Leaders who maintain vocal composure during disagreement demonstrate maturity. People may resist ideas, but they respect the delivery. Public speaking often reveals vocal weaknesses, but everyday leadership depends on voice just as much. Meetings, one-on-one conversations, and difficult discussions all require vocal presence. Leaders do not need theatrical voices. They need intentional voices. Consistency matters more than style. Cultural context also affects vocal perception. In some environments, softness is associated with humility. In others, it is seen as weakness. Effective leaders read context and adjust without losing authenticity. Vocal flexibility is not manipulation. It is communication intelligence. Voice is also connected to emotional endurance. Leaders who constantly speak under tension strain their voice and their energy. Over time, this leads to fatigue and irritability. Grounded vocal habits protect both influence and well-being.com. Speech conserves energy. The absence of vocal presence creates misunderstanding. Ideas are misinterpreted. Authority is questioned. Messages lose clarity. Teams become uncertain. Leaders may blame content. But the problem often lies in delivery. A voice that lacks weight cannot carry responsibility. Developing vocal presence requires practice, not perfection. Awareness is the first step. Leaders must notice how they sound under pressure. Do they rush? Do they tighten? Do they avoid pauses? Small adjustments in breathing, pacing, and tone create immediate improvement. Reading aloud, practicing pauses, and speaking with intention strengthen vocal control. But more importantly, inner alignment strengthens the voice naturally. When leaders are clear and present internally, the voice follows. A voice that carries weight does not demand attention. It earns it. People lean in because they feel steadiness. Words land because they are supported by tone. Influence grows because communication feels reliable. Leadership is not only seen, it is heard. The voice is the bridge between inner presence and outer impact. When leaders master their voice, they amplify clarity, trust, and authority. In a noisy world, the leader with a calm, grounded voice becomes unmistakable. Chapter 7. Decisions that define you. Every leader is remembered not for intentions, but for decisions. Leadership is a series of choices made under pressure, uncertainty, and incomplete information. In those moments, hesitation speaks as loudly as action. People do not expect leaders to be perfect, but they expect them to decide. The quality of leadership is measured by the clarity, courage, and consistency of decisions. Decision-making is where presence becomes visible. When leaders lack presence, decisions are delayed, avoided, or delegated out of fear. When leaders are present, decisions are deliberate and grounded. Presence allows leaders to see situations as they are, not as anxiety distorts them. It quiets inner noise and reveals what matters most. Without presence, decisions become reactive. With presence, they become defining. Uncertainty is unavoidable. Leaders who wait for complete certainty wait forever. Effective decision-making accepts uncertainty as part of responsibility. The goal is not certainty, but alignment. A good decision aligns with values, available information, and long-term purpose. Even if outcomes vary, alignment preserves credibility. People trust leaders who choose based on principle rather than impulse. Fear is the greatest enemy of decision. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, and fear of responsibility paralyze leadership. Leaders trapped in fear seek endless input, hoping to outsource accountability. This erodes authority. Decision-making requires ownership. When leaders own their choices, they own their leadership. Decisions communicate priorities. What a leader chooses to act on signals what truly matters. Ignoring small issues sends powerful messages. Addressing them promptly sets standards. Leaders often underestimate how closely teams watch decisions. Consistency builds trust. Inconsistency breeds confusion. People may tolerate unpopular decisions, but they struggle with unpredictable ones. Decision speed matters, but so does decision quality. Rushed decisions create chaos. Delayed decisions create stagnation. Present leaders balance urgency and reflection. They pause long enough to think, but not so long that momentum is lost. This balance signals competence. Pressure reveals character. In calm moments, anyone can appear decisive. Under stress, true patterns emerge. Leaders who remain composed make clearer decisions. Emotional control supports judgment. When emotions dominate, logic weakens. Presence restores balance. Decision-making also requires courage. Some decisions cost approval. Others require saying no. Leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It is about serving the mission. Leaders who prioritize popularity lose direction. Leaders who prioritize purpose gain respect. Delegation is also a decision. Leaders who refuse to delegate often hide insecurity. Trusting others strengthens leadership. Clear delegation communicates confidence and develops capability. Micromanagement signals doubt and weakens authority. Learning from decisions is as important as making them. Strong leaders reflect without self. They analyze outcomes, extract lessons, and adjust. Weak leaders defend decisions to protect ego. Growth requires humility. Transparency strengthens decisions. Explaining the reasoning behind choices builds understanding. People commit more when they understand why. Silence creates suspicion. Clear communication reinforces trust. Avoiding decisions is itself a decision. It communicates fear and indecision. Teams feel abandoned. Momentum stalls. Leaders must recognize that inaction carries consequences. Over time, decisions shape identity. Patterns emerge. Leaders become known for fairness, courage, or hesitation. These reputations form quietly, but last long. Every decision contributes to that story. Decision fatigue is real. Leaders who face constant choices must manage energy. Presence helps by simplifying priorities. When values are clear, decisions become easier. Decision-making defines leadership legacy. Titles fade. Words are forgotten. decisions remain. They shape culture, trust, and outcomes. Leadership demands responsibility for choices made and consequences faced. When leaders decide with presence, courage, and clarity, they become anchors in uncertainty. Decisions then do more than solve problems. They define leaders themselves. Chapter 8. Listening as Leadership. Leadership is often mistaken for speaking, persuading, and giving orders, but the most powerful leaders spend more time listening than talking. Listening is not passive. It is an active force that builds trust, uncovers insight, and creates alignment. The leader who truly listens can sense problems before they appear, understand motivations behind actions, and guide people with precision. Leadership begins not with your voice, but with your ears. Many leaders fail because they hear, but do not listen. Hearing as mechanical sound enters the ear. Listening requires attention, empathy, and reflection. It is a choice to fully absorb what others are communicating, not just their words, but their tone, body language, and context. People can tell when they are superficially heard. Genuine listening signals respect and value, creating loyalty before any orders are given. Listening creates presence. When a leader is fully attentive, it anchors the moment. Distractions vanish, and people sense stability. Multitasking or partial attention erodes presence. The moment you look away or check your phone during a conversation, authority diminishes. Leadership is amplified when listening is uninterrupted and intentional. Empathy is a critical element of listening. Understanding the emotions behind the words allows a leader to respond appropriately. People do not always articulate what they feel or need. Skilled leaders pick up subtle cues, a pause, a sigh, a hesitation. They listen beyond language, translating unspoken messages into insight. This ability creates influence without imposition. Listening strengthens leaders who gather diverse perspectives and truly hear input make better choices. They avoid blind spots and consider long-term consequences. Listening also reduces conflict because people feel acknowledged. When opinions are respected, even opposing views contribute constructively rather than explosively. Active listening requires patience. Leaders often feel pressured to respond immediately, but thoughtful silence conveys attention and consideration. Pauses give the speaker space and demonstrate control. Hasty responses can signal impulsiveness or The best leaders allow space for ideas to unfold naturally. Curiosity drives listening. Effective leaders ask questions not to show intelligence, but to understand deeply. Open-ended questions invite reflection and reveal hidden truths. A curious leader discovers motivations, anticipates challenges, and connects ideas that others miss. Curiosity transforms listening from a mechanical skill into a strategic advantage. Listening also strengthens relationships. When people feel heard, psychological safety increases. Teams communicate openly, share risks, and innovate without fear. Lack of listening fosters misunderstanding, defensiveness, and disengagement. Influence grows when leaders prioritize understanding over assertion. Nonverbal cues are part of listening. Leaning forward, maintaining eye contact, and nodding indicate attention. These gestures communicate presence beyond words. Conversely, crossed arms, distracted glances, or fidgeting signal detachment. Leaders must align their body with their intent to listen effectively. Feedback loops are essential. Leaders should confirm understanding by paraphrasing or summarizing what they hear. This demonstrates attentiveness and prevents misinterpretation. Feedback also validates the speaker, reinforcing trust and commitment. Leadership expands when communication is accurate and relational rather than transactional. Listening transforms conflict into collaboration. Most disputes escalate because parties feel unheard. A leader who listens fully can identify the root cause rather than react to surface arguments. This enables mediation, negotiation, and resolution. Listening in conflict does not weaken authority. It demonstrates strength and maturity. Developing listening requires discipline. It demands slowing down, resisting impulse to interject, and prioritizing understanding over. Listening also requires humility, accepting that you may not have all answers, and valuing perspectives different from your own. Listening is strategic. Leaders who know when to listen, to whom, and how deeply can influence outcomes more effectively than those who dominate conversation. Listening reveals information, builds rapport, and aligns intentions. Leadership is not measured by how much you speak, but by how much you enable others to be heard and understood. In a noisy world, listening is rare. This rarity amplifies its impact. Teams, peers, and stakeholders respond to leaders who prioritize attention over assertion. Listening fosters collaboration, uncovers hidden potential, and cultivates loyalty that cannot be commanded. The absence of listening diminishes leadership subtly but steadily. Miscommunication rises. Trust erodes. Teams become disengaged. Leaders may have brilliant ideas, but without listening, they fail to connect. Listening bridges vision and execution. It transforms authority from coercion into influence. Leadership begins with listening because understanding precedes action. Decisions made without listening are brittle. Influence without listening is superficial. Presence without listening is incomplete. Leaders who master listening integrate clarity, empathy, and strategy, turning information into insight and attention into loyalty. Ultimately, listening is both a tool and a statement. It says, "You matter. I am present. I understand." These words, spoken silently through attentive behavior, establish credibility, deepen relationships, and amplify influence. Leadership is therefore not only expressed through decisions or words, but through the disciplined art of listening, which quietly shapes action, culture, and trust. Chapter 9. The power of influence. Leadership is often equated with authority, but true leadership is influence. Titles and positions provide structure, but influence moves people to act, think, and commit beyond obligation. Influence is the invisible force that converts vision into reality, aligning energy toward shared goals. Without influence, even the most brilliant strategy remains inert. Leadership begins not with power over people, but with the ability to affect their perspective, behavior, and engagement. Influence is rooted in credibility. People follow leaders who are consistent, authentic, and competent. Credibility is earned, not assumed. Leaders who act with integrity, demonstrate knowledge, and maintain presence naturally inspire confidence. Influence grows because people trust that the leader's guidance is reliable and worthwhile. Conversely, leaders who lack credibility struggle to inspire even compliance, let alone engagement. Emotional intelligence strengthens influence. Leaders who understand and respond to the emotions of others can guide more effectively. Emotional awareness allows leaders to adapt communication, anticipate resistance, and connect meaningfully. Influence is not coercion, it is connection. When leaders resonate with the feelings of their team, engagement becomes voluntary, not enforced. Influence begins with attention. As discussed previously, capturing and maintaining attention is the first step in guiding others. People can only be influenced when they are fully present to your message. Attention communicates significance, focus, and respect. Leaders who master attention direct energy, motivate action, and shape priorities without raising their voice. Listener amplifies influence. By genuinely understanding the perspectives, concerns, and motivations of others, leaders craft messages that align with reality. Influence is most powerful when it addresses the unspoken needs of individuals and groups. People act not because they are told to, but because they feel understood and valued. Listening transforms leadership from instruction into collaboration. Influence also relies on clear vision. Leaders must articulate where they are going and why it matters. Ambiguity weakens impact. People need to understand purpose before committing effort. When vision is aligned with values and communicated with presence, influence flows naturally. Teams follow clarity more readily than charisma alone. The timing and delivery of influence matter. Even the most accurate guidance fails if delivered at the wrong moment or in the wrong manner. Skilled leaders observe readiness, emotional state, and context before acting. Influence is therefore strategic, not impulsive. It requires patience, observation, and judgment. Influence grows through consistency. Repeated demonstration of competence, empathy, and integrity strengthens trust. Each interaction contributes to a cumulative perception of reliability. Inconsistent behavior, on the other hand, erodes influence quietly but steadily. Influence is fragile and must be nurtured with deliberate action. Storytelling enhances influence. Leaders who can translate vision into narrative create emotional resonance. Stories convey values, illustrate principles, and make abstract goals tangible. Humans respond to narrative instinctively. Effective leaders use stories to align behavior and inspire commitment, demonstrating that influence is as much emotional as rational. Influence is strengthened by example. Leaders who embody the standards they set demonstrate authenticity. Words alone are insufficient. Actions communicate priority. Leading by example signals commitment, courage, and consistency. Influence without modeling collapses when challenged. Influence is not manipulation. Ethical leaders guide rather than coerce. They respect autonomy while providing direction. Influence grows when people feel choice rather than obligation. Leaders who manipulate may achieve temporary compliance, but long-term trust erodes. Sustainable influence requires respect, clarity, and integrity. Powerful influence emerges during adversity. Crisis reveals true leadership capacity. Leaders who remain calm, decisive, and communicative during challenges inspire action and confidence. Their influence is magnified because people observe stability under pressure. Conversely, reactive leaders lose influence precisely when it is most needed. Influence requires empathy, combined with courage. Leaders must sometimes make unpopular decisions, challenge assumptions, or confront uncomfortable truths. Influence without courage risks passivity. Courage without empathy risks alienation. Leadership balances both to guide effectively and humanely. Influence spreads through networks. Leaders do not operate in isolation. By fostering connections, nurturing talent, and empowering others, leaders extend their influence beyond direct authority. People who feel guided and supported naturally become ambassadors of vision, multiplying the leader's impact. Influence is cumulative. EHDCCO. Each interaction and each demonstration of integrity either strengthens or weakens it. Leaders who neglect small moments may see influence erode over time. Leadership is therefore a daily practice, not a one-time display. The absence of influence renders authority hollow. Commands may be issued, rules enforced, and tasks assigned, but engagement is minimal. Influence ensures action is not only performed, but embraced. Teams move faster, innovate more, and commit deeply when influence is present. Developing influence is intentional. It requires presence, clarity, emotional intelligence, listening, consistency, and ethical grounding. Influence is not imposed. It is cultivated. Leaders who invest in these practices become guides who shape behavior, culture, and outcomes effortlessly. Ultimately, leadership is measured not by position, but by the ability to inspire action. Influence transforms ideas into reality, aligns energy with vision, and creates lasting impact. Leaders who master influence convert authority into effectiveness, presence into persuasion, and vision into tangible progress. Influence is leadership in its purest form, the power to move people without force and to inspire action without coercion. Chapter 10. Vision that guides. Leadership without vision is like sailing without a compass. People may move, efforts may be made, but direction is absent. Vision is the internal map that guides decisions, priorities, and influence. It provides coherence to actions and alignment to teams. Leaders who lack vision may achieve temporary results, but long-term impact is random and unsustainable. Vision turns intention into action and presence into purpose. Vision begins with clarity of values. What does the leader stand for? What principles guide decisions when uncertainty strikes? Values are the foundation upon which vision is built. Without this base, vision becomes vague or opportunistic. Clear values create a lens for evaluating opportunities, risks, and trade-offs. People sense this alignment instinctively and are more likely to follow. A compelling vision communicates possibility. It is not just a statement of goals, but an image of a better future. Leaders who articulate vision in vivid terms enable people to see themselves within it. This emotional connection motivates beyond obligation. Tasks become meaningful, challenges become shared, and commitment deepens. Vision inspires action by appealing to both reason and emotion. Vision requires focus. Leaders must prioritize what contributes directly to the desired future. Distractions, even appealing opportunities, dilute impact. Focused vision provides a framework for when confronted with choices, leaders measure them against whether they move the organization toward the vision. This reduces hesitation, prevents drift, and reinforces credibility. Communication is essential for vision to be effective. A vision unspoken is invisible. Leaders must consistently convey the vision through words, actions, and symbols. Repetition is not redundancy. It reinforces alignment. The most effective leaders integrate vision into daily routines, ensuring that every conversation, decision, and action reflects the intended direction. Vision connects to influence. When people understand and believe in the future a leader envisions, they willingly align their behavior. Influence without vision lacks sustainability. Vision without influence lacks implementation. Together, they create momentum that transforms ideas into tangible outcomes. Vision also guides emotional tone. Leaders facing setbacks or conflict need an anchor to maintain stability. A clear vision provides that anchor. It allows leaders to respond calmly under pressure, knowing that short-term turbulence does not threaten the ultimate goal. Teams feel security in this consistency, which amplifies trust and engagement. Leaders must be flexible in pursuing vision without compromising its core. Adaptation is inevitable. Conditions change. Information evolves, and new challenges arise. Effective leaders adjust strategies while maintaining alignment with the overarching vision. Flexibility does not weaken influence. Rigidity. Vision provides direction, not rigid instructions. A shared vision multiplies effectiveness. When teams internalize a leader's vision, alignment becomes self-reinforcing. Individuals coordinate autonomously, reducing the need for micromanagement. People are motivated to innovate and contribute because they see how their efforts connect to the larger purpose. Leadership effectiveness grows exponentially when vision is communal. Vision also demands courage. A compelling future often requires challenging the status quo, confronting entrenched practices, or taking risks. Leaders who shy away from these challenges compromise the vision. Courage signals commitment. Teams follow leaders willing to face uncertainty in pursuit of meaningful goals. Vision requires emotional resonance. Leaders must frame the future in terms that matter to people's values, aspirations, and concerns. Logic alone motivates partially. Vision that touches the heart inspires fully. Storytelling, metaphors, and imagery make vision tangible. People do not follow abstract ideals, they follow possibilities they can imagine and believe in. The absence of vision creates drift. Teams become reactive. Morale declines, and energy dissipates. Authority may persist temporarily, but influence erodes. Without vision, presence and decisions lack context, and engagement becomes transactional. Vision is the glue that holds leadership elements together. Clarity, influence, and decision-making all converge toward it. Vision must also be measurable. While it inspires, it must translate into actionable steps. Milestones, metrics, and checkpoints allow leaders and teams to track progress, celebrate achievements, and recalibrate when necessary. Measurable vision balances aspiration with accountability. Developing vision requires self-reflection, foresight, and observation. Leaders must identify trends, understand needs, and anticipate challenges. They must also assess resources, capabilities, and constraints. Effective vision is ambitious, yet realistic, inspiring, yet achievable. It creates belief without fostering complacency. Vision amplifies leadership when embodied fully. Words alone are insufficient. Leaders demonstrate commitment to vision through consistent behavior, decision-making, and priorities. Embodied vision aligns voice, body, and presence with purpose, creating authenticity that inspires trust. Ultimately, vision transforms leadership from reactive management into proactive guidance. It turns strategy into shared purpose, presence into direction, and influence into coordinated action. Leaders who master vision provide clarity, motivation, and stability. In uncertainty, vision is not just a goal. It is the defining force that aligns people, actions, and decisions toward a meaningful future. It ensures that leadership is not temporary, but transformative. Chapter 11. Building Trust That Lasts. Leadership is impossible without trust. Titles, authority, and influence may compel action temporarily, but trust sustains commitment over time. People follow leaders, not because they are told to, but because they believe in them. Trust is the invisible bond that transforms presence into reliability, influence into loyalty, and vision into collective action. Without trust, leadership is fragile. With it, leadership becomes enduring. Trust begins with consistency. People observe patterns more than promises. Leaders who act predictably, uphold commitments, and demonstrate integrity create a foundation for trust. Inconsistency, even when unintentional, erodes confidence. Missed deadlines, broken promises, or sudden shifts in values signal Trust is not built in grand gestures. It is built in everyday actions repeated faithfully. Transparency reinforces trust. Leaders who communicate openly about decisions, challenges, and expectations invite honesty in return. Concealment or selective disclosure fosters suspicion. Transparency does not mean sharing every detail, but it does mean providing sufficient context to understand decisions. Teams feel secure when the rationale behind actions is clear and accessible. Empathy strengthens trust. Leaders who understand and respect the experiences, concerns, and emotions of others cultivate connection. People follow leaders who see them as human beings rather than resources or obstacles. Empathy allows leaders to respond in ways that feel considerate and fair, even in difficult circumstances. It signals that leadership is not about control, but about care. Accountability is central to trust. Leaders must accept responsibility for decisions, outcomes, and mistakes. Blame shifting or evasion undermines credibility. When leaders demonstrate accountability, they model integrity and encourage similar behavior within the team. Trust grows when people see that leaders stand behind their actions and accept the consequences. Competence is equally essential. People trust leaders who know what they are doing. Knowledge, skill, and preparation are visible signals of reliability. A competent leader inspires confidence, not through arrogance, but through mastery and informed judgment. Influence thrives when followers believe the leader has the ability to guide effectively. Trust also demands fairness. Leaders who treat people equitably, recognize contributions, and address conflicts impartially build loyalty. Favoritism, or perceived injustice, corrodes morale. Fairness is not about perfection. It is about demonstrating respect and maintaining integrity in decisions that affect others. Communication is a tool for building trust. Leaders who speak with honesty, clarity, and intention reduce ambiguity. Listening amplifies trust, as people feel understood and valued. Even difficult messages can strengthen trust when delivered respectfully and transparently. Miscommunication, by contrast, breeds doubt and resentment. Trust is reinforced through reliability in crisis. True character reveals itself under pressure. Leaders who remain calm, decisive, and supportive during adversity solidify faith in their leadership. People measure trust not in calm moments, but in turbulence. Consistency under stress separates dependable leaders from superficial authority. Vulnerability is a paradoxical component of trust. Leaders who admit mistakes, acknowledge limitations, or express genuine concern humanize themselves. Vulnerability does not diminish authority. When balanced with competence and clarity, it strengthens relational bonds. People trust leaders who are real, not infallible. Building trust requires time and it cannot be rushed or demanded. It emerges gradually through repeated demonstration of integrity, empathy, competence, and accountability. Trust is fragile. It takes years to develop and seconds to erode. Leaders must be vigilant in nurturing it daily. Cultural sensitivity is also vital. Trust manifests differently across cultures and contexts. Effective leaders observe norms, respect differences, and adapt behaviors without compromising core values. Awareness of context ensures trust is built in ways that resonate with diverse teams. Trust enhances influence. People willingly follow leaders they trust, even when they face challenges or uncertainties. It amplifies commitment, encourages initiative, and fosters collaboration. Trust transforms compliance into engagement and direction into shared purpose. Conversely, the absence of trust diminishes all leadership efforts. Authority becomes coercion, communication becomes questioned, and influence becomes temporary. Teams disengage, innovation stalls, and organizational resilience suffers. Trust is therefore the foundational currency of lasting leadership. Leaders strengthen trust by aligning words, actions, and intentions. Congruence communicates authenticity. When what a leader says matches what they do, people sense reliability. Misalignment, even if unintentional, signals doubt and erodes confidence. Trust is built in alignment, reinforced by consistency. Ultimately, trust is both relational and operational. It binds people to leaders, and it ensures systems function smoothly. Leadership without trust may achieve short-term goals, but it cannot endure. Leaders who cultivate trust create environments where presence, influence, decisions, and vision are amplified. Trust transforms leadership from authority into legacy. Leadership is not simply about direction or control. It is about the relationships that allow people to follow willingly. By consistently demonstrating integrity, competence, empathy, accountability, and transparency, leaders build trust that lasts. Trust is the invisible architecture that supports every element of effective leadership, turning temporary influence into sustained impact and fleeting presence into enduring authority. Chapter 12. Integration of presence, leadership in action. Leadership is not a collection of skills. It is the integration of presence, attention, emotional control, voice, vision, trust, and influence into coherent action. Each chapter of this exploration has dissected aspects of leadership individually, but real mastery emerges when these elements converge. Presence alone is incomplete. Decisions without vision are hollow. Influence without trust is transient. Leadership is effective when all these facets operate in harmony, creating a force that is both visible and enduring. Integration begins with self. Leaders must understand their strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and triggers. Without this knowledge, attempts at presence or influence are inconsistent. Self-awareness allows leaders to modulate behavior, align actions with values, and respond rather than react. Presence is the result of conscious attention to oneself and the environment. Integration starts internally. Attention is the bridge between self-awareness and external leadership. Leaders who direct attention deliberately, rather than reactively, shape outcomes. They notice emerging opportunities, anticipate challenges, and read people accurately. Attention ensures that influence is purposeful, decisions are informed, and communication lands as intended. Integration requires that attention is applied strategically across every interaction. Emotional control interacts with attention to stabilize presence. Leaders who regulate their emotions maintain clarity in complex situations. Emotional mastery prevents impulsive reactions, enabling decisions and communication that are deliberate and effective. Integration occurs when emotion serves judgment rather than undermines it. Emotional composure also fosters trust, signaling reliability and credibility. Voice and body amplify integrated presence. Words carry more weight when supported by physical embodiment and tonal consistency. A calm, grounded posture paired with steady, intentional speech communicates authority without aggression. Integration ensures that inner state, expression, and communication are aligned, producing influence that is authentic, and compelling. Vision serves as the guiding framework for all integrated leadership actions. Without a clear direction, presence and influence risk randomness. Integration means that every decision, every interaction, and every message is measured against the broader vision. This alignment creates coherence, reducing confusion and reinforcing credibility. People feel certainty not because situations are simple, but because leadership is consistent. Trust is both the outcome and enabler of integration. When leaders consistently apply presence, attention, emotional control, and integrity, trust grows. Trust allows influence to be exercised more effectively. It ensures that decisions are accepted, vision is embraced, and collaboration thrives. Integration cannot exist without relational grounding. People must believe in the leader's authenticity and capability. Integration is tested in complexity. Leadership rarely occurs in simple or predictable scenarios. Challenges, conflict, competing priorities, and limited information demand that leaders draw on every element simultaneously. The integrated leader observes, decides, communicates, and acts with alignment. Their presence anchors teams, their voice directs focus, and their vision guides strategy. Integration transforms potential chaos into coherent action. Adaptability is key. Integrated leadership does not mean rigidity. The leader must adjust approach to context, audience, and evolving circumstances while remaining true to core values and vision. Integration is not mimicry or pretense. It is flexible alignment, balancing stability with responsiveness. Presence adapts without losing coherence. Influence adjusts without losing integrity. Decisions pivot without losing principle. Integration also amplifies learning. Leaders who connect presence, attention, and reflection extract insight from experience. They learn not only from outcomes, but from processes. Feedback is observed, analyzed, and incorporated consciously. Integrated leaders convert experience into growth, ensuring that every challenge strengthens capability rather than depleting confidence. Integration deepens ethical leadership. When attention, emotion, influence, and decision-making are aligned with values, ethical lapses decrease. Presence becomes a moral compass. Decisions carry weight because they reflect integrity, not convenience. Influence guides behavior without coercion, creating alignment that is principled and sustainable. Influence, presence, and trust converge in integrated leadership to produce resilience. Teams facing uncertainty follow leaders who maintain calm, provide clarity, and model perseverance. Integration allows leaders to sustain energy, manage complexity, and inspire commitment over time. Leadership becomes a stabilizing force rather than a fluctuating reaction. Communication in integrated leadership is precise and impactful. Words, tone, gestures, and timing are coordinated. Leaders speak clearly, pause intentionally, listen actively, and respond thoughtfully. Integration ensures that every interaction reinforces credibility, supports vision, and strengthens relationships. Presence is no longer fragmented. It resonates holistically. Integration is cultivated, not accidental. It requires deliberate practice across all leadership dimensions. Self-awareness, attention, emotional control, communication, trust building, and vision must be exercised daily. Each element reinforces the others, creating exponential growth in capability. Leadership becomes seamless because the leader's inner state, behavior, and intentions operate as one coherent system. The absence of integration results in leadership that is inconsistent, fragmented, or ineffective. Teams sense dissonance, trust erodes, and influence diminishes. Vision becomes disconnected from action. Presence loses impact, and decisions lack coherence. Integration is the glue that binds all leadership elements into functional authority. Ultimately, leadership is experienced as a whole. Presence is felt. Trust is sensed. Influence is observed. And vision is understood collectively. Integration transforms these individual components into a force that moves people, aligns energy, and produces lasting results. Leadership in action is not about isolated skills. It is about synchronized mastery, applied with awareness, courage, and purpose. Leaders who achieve integration embody what leadership truly is: a conscious, aligned, and ethical presence that shapes outcomes, inspires engagement, and leaves enduring impact. It is in this integration that leadership transcends instruction and becomes transformation, both for the leader and for those they guide. Presence, influence, vision, trust, and decision-making converge, producing a leadership legacy that is not just seen or heard, but profoundly felt.